The color stories are just a skosh off. I'm not built for this today. Hi, Hodies. My name is hautemesstom, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hi, today we're going to do a Critical Sass, and Critical Sasses are my new makeup release videos. I have 3 ethos to my channel. The first one is I like to love my makeup collection as it currently is and adore it, and it's really good the way it is. It may not be perfect, but she's that girl. The second thing is I like to be critical of new makeup releases, which is what we're going to do today. And for third, when I do decide to make a purchase, I like to make sure that I'm making the best possible decision that I can with real reasons as to why I am bringing that into my collection. If you are new here and that content sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. I post a few times a week and it's fun and people like it. It sounds like it. I don't know. It's the comments I get. It's great, you know? So Critical Sass is obviously we get to be fun and sassy and, you know, it has the vibe of an anti-haul, but I also love to celebrate goodness. I love to celebrate whenever a brand does something that I think is worth celebrating. So we do the whole thing here. We do all A, B, C, D, E, F, U. Nope, sorry, wrong thing. So what I like to do in these videos is I pull up Trend Mood, I pull up Makeup Release Radar, I pull up Beauty News Official, I go through things that have been released relatively recently, and I talk about my thoughts on them. Now, for the most part, I have no background on what these things are, right? So I'm only looking at an image and maybe reading the description and going from there, because sometimes I don't have the full story by just looking at this, and neither do you. So sometimes I get things wrong, especially if something only is sneak peeked and I only know so little, and then later on we find out that it's like it's a lot more than what we once thought. So it happens. That's okay. So let me pull up Trend Mood and let me go. I'm going to start with newest and go back until I hit something that I've already talked about. If you missed it, my last one was a Critical Sass live, and I'm going to make that monthly. So basically every other Critical Sass will be a live Critical Sass, and I hope you can make it. They will always be on Wednesdays at 7:30. I think it's always going to be the last Wednesday of every month. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can get all that information. It's already on my channel. You should be able to see it to like remind you if you want to, and also follow me on Instagram because I will be talking about it there to give you friendly reminders. So I would love to see you on the next Critical Sass live. Let's get started. I'm going to start with Trend Mood. So the first thing that catches my eye is Lancome is releasing the Teint Idole Ultra Wear Care and Glow Foundation with hyaluronic acid. I'm wondering if this is supposed to be the counterpart, the more glowy counterpart to the Lancome Teint Idole. The Teint Idole foundation is a really good foundation, and I didn't find it to be like the most matte foundation that I've ever used. It would play well with a lot of skin types, especially if you were doing the right kind of prep. But I also understand that a lot of people don't want to have to put that kind of work into their foundation, so I can understand if you've never used the Teint Idole because you were worried about it being too matte. I completely understand. Here's what I will say. This is an exciting release to me. I love a foundation. I love foundation. And the Lancome Teint Idole original one is so good. I only have high hopes for this one. Here's a description as written on Trend Mood. An up to 24-hour healthy looking glow serum foundation with buildable medium coverage and SPF 27, plus hyaluronic and mandelic acids to hydrate smooth skin for a natural looking glow finish for $47. Comes in 30 transfer resistant blendable shades, 4 radiant finish, and 26 natural finish. After reading that, I'm a little bit more confused. Why are 4 radiant and the other ones have the same finish? So I'm a little bit confused about that. But that also could be a Trend Mood thing that happens sometimes when you first read them on Trend Mood. It's like, it feels like a little bit off. And not that the person who runs Trend Mood isn't doing a good job. They very much are. But sometimes she doesn't have the full story either. And so we just kind of get what she gives us. And it's okay. I can say that I'm very excited about this. I do feel like their other shade range is a little bit better. I think the other one has 40. I could be wrong about that. So I wish there was maybe a few more shades. And my concern is that perhaps the lightest one wouldn't be light enough for me, because my shade in the original one is one of the shades that they added additionally later. So I assume that's what's happening here, because the first shade here is 105 Warm, and I believe that the lightest shade in the original Teint Idole is like 00. You have some slight pause too because Lancome's shade range does just tend to pull warm too, but they make beautiful products. I think that the shade range could be slightly bit better, but I think that's always the complaint. If I look at the arm swatches, it does feel like we jump a little bit. It's not the best shade range, but here's to hoping that they release more shades of this. Here's to hoping it's a beautiful product, but maybe we could have some more shades. Okay, we're going to talk about it. If you are new to my channel, I have a long sordid history with Pat McGrath, and I'm going to detail it here. I thought about making a separate video, like talking about breaking up with the brand and using Pat McGrath as a case study. I'm using the term case study pretty loosely here, so just follow me. And talking about how a brand I had such high regard for and revered, and now I feel worse. Every time they release something, I'm exhausted. And nothing has exhausted me more as a release from Pat McGrath as the Mothership 10, which is not Divine Rose 4, which is what it should be called, but it is called the Moonlit Seduction. First and foremost, before I get into this rant, I'm going to say that this is a pretty palette. So if you do not own any of the Divine Rose or the Utopia palette, then I think this is a worthwhile investment. I like Pat McGrath shadows quite a lot. I like the baked shades on the right. I like a Pat McGrath palette. In fact, I have loved a Pat McGrath palette before, and I hope to again, but as of right now, it's looking less and less likely. So for some background for the newly initiated here, at one point, I would buy whatever Pat McGrath put out. She put it out, I'm buying it. And that was because I felt like Pat McGrath was bringing haute couture inspired makeup to normal people. And while I'm not going to say it's the most accessible because it is very expensive makeup, but it made it more accessible and was trying to give us, it felt like she was trying to give us the tools to be very creative and use makeup without the idea of limitation and having fun with it more than like being really strategic with about how you do it. And I loved it. And then Divine Rose 1 came out, the original Divine Rose palette, which is, again, want to reiterate, is a beautiful palette. And I bought it because I was a Pat McGrath stan. Bought the palette, used it once, got upset with it. And I feel like, and I could be wrong, but the Divine Rose 1 and Divine Rose 2 did not come out too far away from each other. They kind of came out back to back, if I recall. It was like Divine Rose 1, and then like, I swear, like a few months later, we had Divine Rose 2. And here's what I think. And then also an onslaught of Divine Rose tie-in collections that had like highlighters and lip products and products that weren't eyeshadow palettes. There was also a rose, I don't know if it was called Divine Rose, but there was also a 6 p.m. palette that was released that had the same imagery as like the original Divine Rose palettes. I famously don't like love a pink look. I'm coming around to pink again. Like I started with pink, I'm coming around to pink again. But like famously, I don't really like pink. So I was getting sick of it. But then when the Utopian Dreams palette came out, that felt like the last straw for me. It definitely gave me like last straw vibes. And the reason it did was because it was so similar to Divine Rose 1 and 2 with the exception of a couple of shades. And like, were the shades exactly the same as the other palettes? No, but they weren't far enough away to feel like I should spend $125 for that experience. And I actually made a video at the time. And if you are a subscriber to me already, I posted it again on my community tab because my feelings about the Utopian palette are very similar to what I feel about this Moonlit Glow, whatever palette that we are talking about today. All of these most recent releases, as far as the motherships go, feel very similar in vibe. And what I think happened is Pat McGrath finally released a color story that would appeal to the masses. For an example, as someone who used to work at Sephora, I think this is like the best way to think about it. Pat McGrath has some displays in Sephora stores in the US. I don't know if she does around the world, but I know that in some specific markets, you can find Pat McGrath at Sephora, but not all of them. Like Pat McGrath is not stocked at any of the Sephoras near me. You're a person who doesn't really wear makeup. You walk into Sephora. Are you going to spend $125 on the one that has like a green, a blue, a copper and like a eggplant color. Like, are you gonna buy that one for $125, or are you, the person who's not very experienced with makeup, gonna buy the one that's really, really pretty and looks pretty easy to use? Probably that one. So I'm thinking, this is just me putting my thinking hat on, is that Divine Rose sold really well. And Pat McGrath had sales for the Motherships, which I imagine a Mothership palette sales versus a Too Faced pumpkin spice palette sales are probably pretty different. Like, I'm assuming that more Too Faced product would move rather than these very expensive Mothership palettes. And so I'm thinking that Divine Rose 1 came out and it did gangbusters. Like, they probably sold more than they ever sold. And I'm assuming that Divine Rose 2 was on the flip side, maybe to appease the people that they were worried that were going to think that Divine Rose 1 was too boring. Because I do feel like the turnaround was so fast, and I feel like they had to be in manufacturing at the same time. That's my guess, but I could be wrong about that as well. Divine Rose 2 comes out, probably sells just as well as like the companion piece to Divine Rose 1. And then Pat McGrath is like, well, all of our color stories have to be simply boring now because they sell so much better. As a business person, I can respect the decision to make more money. But as a creative, as someone who wants to buy makeup that inspires me, I'm getting less and less inspired by Pat McGrath releases. The blush duos were like, what the heck are we doing? Where's the innovation? Pat McGrath was known for innovation, and we were just like putting out the same thing every time. There's no innovation. And it's not like the formulas are brand new every time she releases a Mothership. The mattes are a similar formula to all the other mattes that she releases. The baked formula is similar to all the previous formulas that are baked. It's a thing, right? We already are pretty familiar. If you've already bought a Pat McGrath palette, you're buying another Pat McGrath palette with the idea that it's going to be the same level of quality as the other one that you bought. But I'm bored, Pat McGrath. I'm very bored. And I'm already off the bandwagon because I didn't, the Utopian Dreams palette just like really missed me. I was like, Hue, where? Like, where is the Hue? And it's just not sparking joy. It's not sparking interest to me. It's not it. It's just not what Pat McGrath was. And I maybe need to let go of what I felt like Pat McGrath was, because, you know, there are some other brands on the up and up that are more inspiring and creating color stories that feel just as interesting. And I think it'll be an interesting case, and I'm going to use this as a direct comparison, is Isamaya Beauty just launched their first collection, and I feel very much about that release as I do to early releases from Pat McGrath, where it's like, I don't 100% get it, but it's like, certainly doesn't look like what a lot of the mainstream brands are doing. And of course, not to belittle any indie brand who is making very interesting color stories that have beautiful textures. Like, it's not, Pat McGrath thinks that she's unstoppable and that other brands can't do what she's doing, but there are other brands that are doing what she's doing and trying to make it better. And if you don't need Pat McGrath, why buy Pat McGrath at Pat McGrath prices? And I'm going to throw this out there because I've thrown this out there many times. While I really enjoy the beautiful baked shades on the far right side, indie brands are making things that are just as spectacular at a cost that is a little bit better than the Pat McGrath, because, you know, sometimes you have to pay like $20 for an eyeshadow that's going to feel that similar way. Not exactly the same, but at least you're only buying that one eyeshadow that you wanted, and then instead of spending $125 to get the one multi-chrome or the one sparkly shade in a Pat McGrath palette. Another thing I'm going to throw in here, since I've just decided that I'm not going to make the video where I'm talking about breaking up with the brand, I'm just going to talk about it here. Pat McGrath has cheapened her own brand by running too many sales. Never pay full price for Pat McGrath. Never buy it on launch date. It's not that important. Even if she says it's limited edition, it's not. It will come back around and it will go on sale, and you can get it up to 30% off. Normally 25 to 30% off if you wait long enough, because Pat McGrath is cheapening her brand. You should never, absolutely never pay $125 for a Pat McGrath palette, because you don't have to. And she has proven that with the way that she markets her brand. I get emails from Pat McGrath every day. There's always a sale, flash sale, sale. Why would I ever spend $125 on a Mothership palette ever again? The brand is cheapened. So you should only, like, max paying $75 for a new Pat McGrath palette. That's what I would say. And it'd be one thing if Pat McGrath did one great sale every year, because you might not have the patience to wait to that sale, but you don't have to wait that long. Like, blink an eye, Pat McGrath has come up with a reason to give you a sale. That's how I'm feeling about the Moonlit Seduction. Here now I'm taking a look at the color story. It's not that spectacular. It's really gorgeous. It definitely seems like lighter, paler, cooler toned pinks, which the other pinks have definitely leaned like in that rosy warms. So it is a little bit different in that way. And if this ever came across my path where like this was gifted to me, I'd be so pleased. But am I going to spend my money on it? No. And I'm certainly not going to spend $125 on it. I'll wait. This is Mothership 10. I'm not done. I thought I was done. I'm not done. It's Mothership 10. Motherships are numbered with Roman numerals. You finally get to X. You get to X. And this is what you came up with. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Danessa Myricks released Lightwork 3 Experience Palette. It has 8 of the shades from the Lightwork 3. I guess that were the most popular. Is this going to be limited edition or is this a permanent permanent? This is smart because that felt like a really big, weird, interesting flash in the pan that Danessa Myricks like did that with the bigger Lightwork 3 palette. So I'm happy to see that this has come back. This is something that like, if it was on my list, it'd be really low on the list. Like I have a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of yearning for this. And I'm happy to see that they brought it back. And I'm also happy to see they brought it back edited because I didn't like the way that Lightwork 3 looked whenever it first came out with those larger pans and the smaller pans. All the pans are the same size. It doesn't look obnoxiously large. It looks like it will fit right in with the rest of my collection. If I was a professional makeup artist, I'd be really pleased with that as well, that it would be able to fit into my kit. I have no idea if these pans are removable, so I can't speak to that. I'm gonna say what I say anytime multi-chromes kind of get packaged together. If you don't have a large multi-chrome collection and you wanted to get into them, $85 for 8 of them is like not the worst price. And that sounds crazy for me to say, but $10.50 each, it's not the worst pricing for a multi-chrome. It's not even like in reference to Pat McGrath, as we just said, it's like even less than that. I can't speak to the quality of these, but I did do about the vibes of the Danessa Myricks Lightworks 3 palette, and I had fun with it, and it definitely sparked creativity. I'm just going to leave it there. I think this is cool that it got brought back, and I hope that anyone who missed it on the first round and can get what they want out of this. I think that this feels more well thought out than putting, you know what I mean? Like it just feels more well thought out. Nomad Cosmetics released a new eyeshadow palette, or is releasing. I don't know when this video will come out, but it's going to be released on July 12th. It is called, I have no idea what it's called, but here's a picture of it. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me zoom in and try to read. I'll type it on the screen for you. I literally can't read the writing on this palette. So it's inspired by the colorful gardens and market goodies found in Provence. Come in 15 shades from pink roses and red poppy to sunflower yellows, rich honey, finished with a family of purples from soft lavenders to deep aubergine. 10 mattes, 5 shimmers, shifting shimmers, $39. Not bad price. This color story is pretty. And it's pretty because there's complementary colors being used. That can be tough for the eye. It can be tough to put on the eye. Tough as far as like if you want to put a yellow with a purple, you have to kind of make sure they're not overlapping, unless you're okay with like potentially where they meet to turn gray. So that's something to be aware of. But I think this is really pretty. It's very eye-catching. The yellows are gorgeous and the purples are gorgeous. And I love them as complementary colors. So I love to see them next to each other. The rest of the palette I'm not too interested in, but it does seem like these shades are a little more nuanced that we normally see from some brands when they, release any eyeshadow palette. Like the shades are a little bit quirky and they don't seem to be like straightforward what you think of when you think of purple or when you think of yellow. They seem very pretty. This isn't something that like I'm particularly interested in, but I love to see even if I'm not planning on buying it, when I see an eyeshadow palette like trying to do something that I think is cute or thinks is really pretty, I love to shout them out on Critical Sass. I caught up on Trend Mood pretty fast. It seems like not a lot of brands are releasing things right now, which is fine by me. I'm going to check out some indie brands on Makeup Release Radar to see if they have anything that sparks interest. And occasionally, Makeup Release Radar will talk about brands that Trend Mood doesn't talk about, even if they are mainstream. Just kind of was interesting and kind of came out of nowhere. Lunatick Cosmetics Labs released a mascara called the Rest in Place mascara, the RIP mascara. I think I just think that's cool that they release. I just feel like indie brands don't often release a mascara. I don't know why. I don't know if they're hard to formulate or hard to keep up with or whatever, but I think it's really cool that they did. The wand is, it looks, I mean, I'd try it, but I just got the rubber lash from Izumaya, so nothing that I need, but great concept, great name. Oh, this is interesting. LH Cosmetics, or Linda Hallberg, is releasing the Shimmer Saga Quad. There's a quote: "There can never be too much glitter. A collection of dreamy, shimmering pastel shades, 4 creamy and versatile shades, equally gorgeous on their own or as a topper on eyeshadow, lipstick, and gloss. $40.35. These look really pretty. I have a lot of stuff that can do this already. There's a world where I see Lauren May Beauty looking at this and going, that. There's a world where I see Hannah Louise Poston looking at it and going, that. But for me, knowing my collection, I'm very pleased with the kinds of shades that I have that look like this. But if I didn't have them, this would be something that would sparks joy. It sparks joy. I like to see it. It seems like we're doing a lot of brands are coming out with like singles or palettes of these types of shades, which I'm excited to see. I don't know what the larger brands are starting to do that, and I'm happy to see it. So I think that brands are starting to think about fall already, even though we're like only partway through summer in America. Adept is releasing the Amunet palette. And not this. If I swear, if I didn't just buy the Izumaya palette, this would be something that I'd be like on. I'd be on it. I would really love to try Adept's formula. I have a empty pan, like an empty palette from Adept, but I've never tried their eyeshadow formula. And this color story, like the blue, the purple, the gray, ooh, and all of those shimmers. Yes, this works for me. This really works for me. And the outer packaging being that like burgundy, ooh, that red, ooh, this is singing to me in some kind of way. I really like that. And I can't really speak to that more. I can't say that it's stupid, and I can't say even more why I like it, but whew, she's pretty. And I even like on the darker complexion, mama. Laura Mercier is releasing their Wildflower collection. This eyeshadow palette is atrocious. It's like we forgot to turn the hue on. There's no depth to it. It's the first 4 shades on the right, all 4 shades on the furthermost right. It's bad. I can't tell if they're all mattes. They kind of look all matte. There might be shimmers in there. But who wants that? It literally looks like it looks to me, it's like if they started a pro eyeshadow palette and then only went to a mid-tone brown and only did rosy shades from white to that mid-tone brown. And then they forgot every other color of the rainbow in the process. Yeah, and that's their imagery, I think. That's like their marketing imagery. So they did a pretty poor job taking photos of it and marketing it, if there is any more depth and texture to this than what I see. But I have a gut feeling, knowing what I've seen from Laura Mercier's eyeshadow palettes in the past, that very likely there's no intrigue there. So Kevyn Aucoin is releasing the Contour eyeshadow palettes. There are 4 of them, and there are 6 shades, and they're $36 each. In the context of Kevyn Aucoin, this makes a lot of sense. I think in the context of as a consumer, doesn't make a lot of sense. The interesting thing about this is like I can't recall the last time I saw Kevyn Aucoin being like sold in a store, like a lot of the range. Like I don't think that happens anymore. Kevyn Aucoin seems to be mostly a retailer that you have to purchase online or through other online retailers. I think this is a good idea. There's like light, medium, deep, and deep. For someone who wants one palette to use every day, I think these are really smart. I think that's for them. Is it for me? No. Is it for you? Very likely no, if you are really interested in makeup. But if you're not an eyeshadow person and you want some really reliable eyeshadows to just have that are gonna look good and blend easily, I think this is a good option for you. And then you can spend all of your money and intrigue on your cheeks and on your lips if you'd rather do that. So I see the place in it. It's like not the most exciting release to me. And it's not like Kevyn Aucoin. It's not like Kevyn Aucoin has like ever been a truly exciting brand either. Does that make sense? Like it's very much to do very specific things. That's what Kevyn Aucoin that's what the branding is doing. So I think this is giving exactly what Kevyn Aucoin always gives. Okay, I think that's where I'm going to wrap up Critical Sass today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would love to have you subscribe if you aren't already, and make sure any one of you, subscribed or not, like this video before you leave it. And I'm also on Patreon if you would like to support me there. If you'd like to see me on an everyday basis, I'm on Instagram and I post quite often on my stories if you would like to hear from me, but not all of it's makeup content, so buyer beware should you decide to follow me on Instagram. And I that's it. That's it, Hoties. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you a lot for taking the time to watch one of my videos. And remember to follow your haute and you will find me. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. For